Get some more.
Hello and welcome. This is Sarud, and I am heading back to the Elder Scrolls Online. I am leveling up a brand new account, so I thought I would do some beginner tutorials to show people how to do some things early on in the game to give them a better experience. If this is something that you enjoy, please like and subscribe here on YouTube and jam that little notification bell because I plan on doing several of these beginner tutorials here, and I'll let you know when new ones come out. Also, I live stream on Twitch occasionally, so if that's something you're interested in, head over there to Twitch and throw me a follow. I'd really appreciate it. So, heading back to Elder Scrolls Online, I played this game for well over 5 years. I started out on PlayStation 4 when the initial console release happened, I believe back in 2013. I played there for a couple of years, and I was max CP there and did a little bit of endgame raiding. When the Xbox One X came out, I bought one of those and transferred over to Xbox and leveled an account all the way up to max CP there and did quite a bit of endgame raiding. And the more and more I did endgame raiding, I understood that this game plays much better on PC, and also it has the add-ons, which are very nice to say the least. So I bought myself a mid-range to a pretty decent gaming PC, and I headed over to North America PC where I leveled up to max CP there as well. And I did a lot of endgame raiding. I think I was raiding at one point 6 nights a week, somewhere roughly around there. And I had all the trial skins and a few prestigious titles and stuff that went along with it. And then I kind of got burned out once Elsewhere came around. And some of the changes, it's not that I necessarily disagreed with them. It's just I felt that they should have been applying their resources in other facets of the game, like fixing bugs and stuff like that. So I took about a 6-month break or so. But I missed this game, and I really wanted to come back. And I was fortunate enough that I found the base game for like $6 and the Elsewhere Digital Collector's Edition for another 18, which included Morrowind, Somerset, and Elsewhere. So for about $25, I was able to get all the DLC content, or chapters, I guess you can say. So I'm heading back. With that said, let's get to the tutorial here. I'm trying to do a tutorial on character creation to give new players and beginners a heads up on what race and what classes are effective or are good in Elder Scrolls Online. So let's head to it. The first thing you see here is your character creation screen, and when you come to this, you see your Alliance tab here. There are 3 alliances in Elder Scrolls Online, the Daggerfall Covenant, the Eldmeri Dominion, and the Ebonheart Pact. And in each alliance, there are 3 races in these alliances, and they are faction locked for those races. Now, there are 2 ways of getting around the faction lock, and I'll go over that in a second. But for the Daggerfall Covenant, you have Bretons, Orcs, and Redguard. Eldmeri Dominion, you have the Ultimer or High Elves, Bosmer or Wood Elves, and the Khajiit. For Ebonheart Pact, you have Argonians, Dark Elves or Dunmer, and Nords. And then also you see the Imperial race down here at the bottom. That is one of the ways that you can actually get around the faction lock. And how that works is you get the Imperial edition in the Crown Store. I believe it's 2,200 crowns, I think. And as an Imperial, you can pick any faction. Now, the second way of getting around the faction lock is the Any Race, Any Alliance package, and that is in the Crown Store as well, and that's for 2,000 crowns. And what that does is it makes you be able to pick like a Wood Elf on the Daggerfall Covenant. So that's kind of a way to circumvent this. Now, what alliances are is the PvP, open world PvP facet of the game. So if you're not overly interested in PvP, I wouldn't worry about this too much. But if you do have some buddies that play PvP a lot, you might want to get with them and find out what faction they are in, and join the faction that they are if you want to play with them. With enough said about that, how Elder Scrolls is geared, it does matter what race you actually pick. depending on what you want to do in the game. So if you're just a role player that wants to just do quests, some dungeons, and maybe even some normal trials, race isn't overly important. It's going to help you out, but it's not going to make or break. You're going to be able to complete all the content that you would like to with whatever race you want to. But if you're more in like high end PvE endgame content or even PvP, it makes a huge difference on what race and what class that you pick. So, as every MMO is, there is three jobs or roles that you have: tanks, healers, and DPS. And I think I'll start with tanking. As far as tank races are concerned, right now, Nords are by far the best tanks. They get 1,000 max health, 1,500 max stamina, 3,960 physical and spell resistance, and they gain 5 ultimate whenever they take damage on a 10-second cooldown. So those bonuses are definitely geared towards tanking, and they make them probably the best tank race. You can tank on an Argonian as well. They make really good tanks for new players. They get 1,000 health and 1,000 magicka. And they have a unique passive. When you use a potion, you gain 4,000 health, stamina, and magicka. So sustain on an Argonian is very easy for early or new players. And that's probably one of the reasons I would suggest, if you're learning how to tank, to start with an Argonian. They also receive a 6% healing bonus, as well as disease resistance too. So they make very good PvP characters. A lot of people will pick Argonians for PvP characters as well. Imperials actually make really good tanks as well. They get a bonus to health. They get 2,000 health and 2,000 stamina. And they've got a little bit of a unique bonus as well. Whenever they do physical damage, or whenever they apply damage, they gain 333 health, stamina, and magicka. So it makes it a little easier for sustain on them as well. And they also have a 3% cost reduction that includes ultimates as well. So with the health, they're a little hardier than Argonians, and with their regain bonuses and cost reduction, they're kind of in the middle between hardiness and the sustain. So it's easier to sustain on an Argonian, and you get more resistances and ulti regen on Nords, and Imperials are kind of just like right in the middle there. Now, as far as healing is concerned, I didn't heal a whole lot. I did here and there. But healers, good races for healers, I would probably say Bretons are the best. Bretons get cost reduction of 7% to all magicka skills, along with 2,000 magicka. And they also get 100 magicka regained. So sustain on Bretons is amazing, to say the least. It's very helpful for healers. Other races that do well for healers is also Argonians. Argonians have that 6% healing bonus. It's not huge 6%, but it is nice. They also have the 1,000 magicka as well, and plus that sustain bonus of using the potions that I had just spoken about makes it pretty decent as well. You can actually heal on High Elves as well. High Elves have some nice magicka bonuses. They have 258 spell damage, and they also have 2,000 magicka. Now, sustain's a little harder on High Elves. They don't have any regain bonuses, so... but as far as flat damage is concerned, they are one of the better magicka classes. You can also heal on a Khajiit and a Dunmer. Not overly great healers, but they can be done. And now on to DPS, where most people probably start out as. In Elder Scrolls Online, there are two types of damage dealers. You have your stamina and your magicka. Now, stamina DPS are generally your melee, up close and personal, on the boss type attackers. And magicka DPS are generally your ranged casters who fight from a distance. The reason that there are two subclasses of DPS in this game is the way that damage is calculated. Your max magicka or stamina pool is calculated, and then it is applied to a damage number. So it's part of the damage that is included. We'll start with stamina DPS. Right now, orcs are by far the best stamina DPS class. They get a bonus of 258 weapon damage. They also receive 2,000 stamina and 1,000 health, which is really nice for survivability. Being on the boss, you're more susceptible to taking damage, obviously. Other classes that work pretty well are Dunmer, Redguard, Bosmer, and Khajiit. Now, Dunmer and Khajiit I'll actually go over after I finish both of the magic and the stamina because they're kind of unique. But Redguards make pretty good stamina DPS. They receive 2,000 stamina, and they have a unique bonus where when you do direct damage, you get a 950 amount of stamina back for every attack, and I believe that is on a cooldown. I can't remember if it is or not. I would have to check on that. But they also get an 8% cost reduction towards weapon abilities as well. Now, Bosmer make pretty decent stamina DPS as well. They receive 2,000 stamina and a 258 stamina regain bonus as well. So sustain is pretty easy on a wood elf. And then Imperials too, actually. The Imperials with that 2,000 stamina and the 333 stamina, health, and magicka regain when they do damage is pretty nice for sustain, and the 3% cost reduction, including the ultimates, is pretty nice as well. If I was to do a tier list, I would put Orcs as number one in the number one tier slot. I would put Dunmer probably number two, and then Redguard, Bosmer, Khajiit, and Imperials in like that third subclass. As far as Magicka DPS is concerned, High Elves or Ultimer are the most potent damage dealers for Magicka. They get 258 spell damage and the 2,000 Magicka, so they are are solely based basically towards Magicka. Now, they are a bit hard to sustain, and I don't really suggest them for newer players. If you're a newer player, I would go with a Breton instead. Bretons get that 2,000 Magicka, the 100 Magicka regain, and the 7% cost reduction. And the damage behind Ultimer for a Breton is not that much, but the sustain is much, much easier, and it makes the game a lot more fun to play. And it's just overall a better experience for newer players. But if you're looking for maximized damage in an optimized group, Ultimers are the way to go. Now, I mentioned that Dunmer and Khajiit are a little unique. And in that regards, they can actually do both. And they do both fairly well, Magicka and Stamina. Right now, Dunmer are second best in Magicka and Stamina as far as pure DPS output is concerned. And that being, Dunmers get 258 weapon and spell damage, and they also receive 1,875 Stamina and Magicka. The sustain on Dunmer is a little rough, but if you're not too sure what you want to play, either Magicka or Stamina, I believe that Dunmer is actually a pretty good choice. Now, Khajiits are probably in that third subclass, like I said, and they do both Magicka and Stamina well, too. They receive 825 max Stamina, Health, and Magicka. And they also receive 85 Stamina and Magicka regain. And they also have the important bonus of 10% more crit damage. And healing, for that matter. So I guess you could actually do a little bit of healing with a Khajiit as well. But those two classes, if you're pretty unsure what you want to do, Dark Elf and Khajiit both do Magicka and Stamina DPS well. Dunmer is definitely better than a Khajiit, but if you just like Khajiit, you're not going to be hurt completely by picking a Khajiit. Let's put it that way. All right, so on to damage classes. We will start with, actually not damage classes, we'll start with tanking classes first. Dragon Knights, in my opinion, are the easiest and best tank class. They have bonuses towards sustain. They get resources back for using ultimates and also Earth and Heart abilities, which is your Igneous Shield that you use quite often. They also have some damage reduction in their dragon passives as well. So Dragon Knights, I would probably say, are tier 1 tank class. Nightblades do really well. I've never really tanked on a Nightblade. They do pretty well though. They bring certain bonuses to the raid group. I believe it's a crit bonus if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that as well. So I would put Nightblades probably in that second tier tank class. And then for the third tanking class, I would say probably Wardens, Necromancers, and Sorcerers can tank. Are they optimal? Of course not, but they are pretty nice. I've actually tanked on a Warden. I've tanked Vet Cloudrest several times as a main tank on Wardens, and they actually do really well. It's just Dragon Knights I like better. I just feel Dragon Knights are a lot easier to tank. As far as Templar tanking is concerned, I would stay away from Templars. They don't really have any sustain that helps you in tanking, and they're just pretty rough to tank on. All right, so healers. Right now, healers are the Warden is probably the best healer. Templars are very, very good as well. So in that like tier 1 healing class, I would probably put Templars and Wardens, with Wardens being slightly better. They have the minor toughness bonus, which gives 10% more health, I believe, or is it 1,000? It may be 1,000 health. I don't think it's 10% health. It could be 10% health, though. I can't remember, though, offhand. Templars were the king of healers for a very long time, but now Wardens kind of slightly outpace them, but they're still really good. And in most optimized groups, you want one Warden healer and one Templar healer, so you're going to be fine with either of those healing classes. Dragon Knights have a couple of abilities that can work as healing. Sorcerers, I know for a while there, people were trying to incorporate sorcerers into healing, so they didn't have to bring a Magicasauric DPS, but it just came to the conclusion that a Magicka Sorcerer DPS was just more efficient than bringing a Sorcerer healer. Necromancers, I've seen people heal endgame content on Necromancers. They do okay. Nightblades I would probably stay away from. I could be wrong, but I've never really seen anybody heal on a Nightblade. So I would probably stay away from Nightblades. But like I said, tier 1, Wardens and Templars. Tier 2, probably Dragon Knight, Sorcerers, and Necromancers. And then I probably just wouldn't make a Nightblade healer. All right, so on to DPS. We'll start with Stamina DPS. The tier 1 by far is Necromancer. Necromancers have the Colossus, which brings major vulnerability for a period of time. That's a huge damage buff. So most optimized groups run at least 4 stamina Necromancers in them. So you can't go wrong with a Necromancer DPS. Dragon Knights are actually probably your like tier 2. They bring a certain bonus these days. They have a unique ability called Stone Fist. It's their spammable, and it brings this stagger bonus to the group, which makes all attacks do 45 more damage, and it stacks for everybody. So it's quite a bit of damage by having a stamina Dragon Knight in your group these days. Now I know certain groups are trying to figure out how to get the main tank to use Stone Fist, but it's pretty difficult, especially in harder content. So it's just easier to bring a stamina Dragon Knight. And then in your like third tier, which are all very good choices, I would say Stamina Sorcerer is in a really good spot. Stam Nightblades have always been really good. Stamina Templars are actually pretty decent these days as well. And then really Wardens you can as well, but I would say tier 1 Necromancer, tier 2 Dragon Knights, tier 3 Sorcerer, Nightblades, and Templars, and then kind of in like a tier 4, I guess you can say, I would say Wardens, even though they do pretty decent damage and they are actually really good for PvP. You're bringing a Warden healer, so the point of bringing a Warden DPS is just, it's not optimal, I guess you could say. Do they work? Of course. Do they do good damage? They do, but you would rather just bring other classes. Now, as far as Magicka is concerned, Necromancer, once again, is probably your tier 1. Once again, they bring Colossus. The major vulnerability is huge, so any Magicka comp, you're bringing at least 4 Magicka Necros. Tier 2 is probably the Magicka Sorcerer. They bring Minor Prophecy to the group. So you want at least one Magicasauric in your Magicka compositions for that Minor Prophecy bonus. Now, you can also get a shield bonus as well if you take that particular morph of their shield, and it brings 10% Magicka regain to the whole group. So that's actually really nice. As long as they kind of keep it in their rotation or use it every once in a while, it brings 10% Magicka regain to the whole group for a period of time. And then in that kind of like third group of DPS, I would probably say Nightblades. Magic and Nightblades have always been pretty good. Magic of Templars are pretty decent. The Magic of Dragonite is actually a little different. Magic of Dragonites are actually a melee class Magicka build, and they have Engulfing Flames, which in the past main tanks applied Engulfing Flames to the boss, which would grant a 10% damage bonus to flame damage or all sources of flame damage. But they changed it either last patch or the patch before, or since Elsewhere came out, they changed the way that Engulfing Flames is applied, and you have to have a certain spell damage in order to apply the full 10% bonus. So main tanks can keep it up. It's very difficult to, because they have to build in order to keep it up. So Magic of Dragonites DPS are actually can be used and used very well for that bonus by itself. So Magic of Wardens are probably again in that fourth tier. They're like stamina wardens, where they do decent damage, but they don't really bring anything to the group, and just other classes are better. So there's kind of a common theme with warden DPS is they're kind of in a bad spot right now. So as far as being a warden, you're pretty much pigeonholed into healing these days. So with that said, tier 1 group, I would definitely put Necromancer, Magic and Necromancer. Tier 2, I would throw some Magic of Sorcerer, and maybe even Magic of Dragonite at this point, because they do bring that Engulfing Flames bonus, which is pretty nice. And then your third tier is Nightblades and Templars. And then I would probably throw Wardens in the bottom of the barrel tier once again, just because you're bringing a Warden healer, and the only reason you just want really one of them in your group for that minor toughness bonus. So that is my quick guide to race and class for the Elder Scrolls Online. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did and found it useful, please once again like and subscribe here on YouTube, and jam that notification bell once again, so when I make more of these, you'll be notified. And also, I live stream on Twitch while I level up my new account here. So if you're interested in coming over and maybe even throwing me some hints and tips, or want to learn some hints and tips as I level up, I'm pretty good at leveling up. I've done it now. This will be the 4th time. So just head on over to Twitch. Follow me there. I'd really appreciate the follow. And have a good one, everybody. Thanks for watching.